this year. But finally, we are into it. Hello, Sarah in the chat. Timothy's there. Tengu, hello. L4L. Anhedonia, hello. Piastri will win. We'll get into it. I mean, I can throw the predictions at you. If you saw the predictions video, it's looking pretty decent for you guys, to be fair. Yeah, for the first time this season, I think I've got to take my hat off to you. Done very well indeed when it has come to the predictions for this weekend. But we'll delve into those in just 1 second. Let me make sure multi-viewer is also loaded. Otherwise, we will miss out on various bits and pieces. There we go. Hello, Sally's there as well. Abiasar. Bob the Blob. I can say that one. How are we all doing? So, should we jump straight into the predictions? Because we do have quite a few things to have a chat about. There's been a few changes to the grid as well. From yesterday to today, so quite a few sort of little bits and pieces to go through. The predictions were as follows. As I said, if you saw, I think it was Thursday, the video eventually came out. Apologies for that, a little bit late in the week, but Thursday's video, you would have known that you guys predicted Oscar Piastri to be on the top step of the podium. Of course, starting there today, not looking too bad at all. You guys predicted that the podium would then go to Lando Norris in second place and Max Verstappen in third. Certainly doable, although them starting a little bit further from the podium places than we expected, especially going into yesterday's qualifying. The big surprise, you thought Yuki Tsunoda was going to have a surprisingly good weekend. Of course, we haven't seen his race pace yet. Little bit better than last time out in Japan in terms of qualifying. So one tick there for Yuki Tsunoda. Still more to come, hopefully. Best team does look like it's still going to be McLaren this weekend, even with Lando Norris having a little bit of an off qualifying session and not being very happy with it. Jack Doohan being the struggle. Seems a little bit harsh now. Had a really good qualifying yesterday. Looked very quick indeed. More likely to be sort of Ollie Behrman. Ollie Behrman not having a very fun time at all. Of course, Esteban Ocon also bringing out the red flag. So does that mean Haas are going to be our flop of the weekend rather than Steak Sauber? It wasn't too good for Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hulkenberg either, but I think you could argue that Haas have had the flop qualifying so far. A lot to do in the race, though, and still 57 laps of the Bahrain Grand Prix before we can really judge whether these predictions were spot on or not. I have a bunch of YouTube videos that's taking my storage. Should I delete it? What? I have no idea. Predictions, it will be hectic chaos with a grid as it is. I love that because the grid is a little bit of a mix, isn't it? It's a weird bunch that we've got up and down. There's not many drivers. In fact, is anybody starting beside their teammate? I don't think so. We haven't got any cars 2x2, which is quite common in Formula One, that you have these kind of packs of two. I don't think anybody is starting anywhere close to their teammate. A real jumbled grid from yesterday's qualifying. Piastri starts on pole position. Deservedly so. Was very, very good in that final qualifying session. Just very slick indeed from Oscar. And of course, entering that conversation, you look at the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships, we can bring those up quickly. Lando Norris, 62 points, Verstappen, 61. They're the two in there at the moment after 3 Grand Prix weekends. But had Piastri not had that quite dramatic fumble in Australia, he would be a lot closer to that top rung of the Drivers' Championship. And maybe this is his weekend, where it swings in his favour rather than Lando Norris's. And it's going to be very tight indeed towards the top end, especially if people finish where they're starting in qualifying today. However, I'm not expecting that to be the case as it was when we were in Japan last week. I was going to say a couple of weeks ago. It felt like a couple of weeks, but it felt like a couple of weeks, but it's not. But we are getting into it. Charles Leclerc now starts in second place. So you're probably wondering why the two Mercedes cars have changed positions just slightly. It is because they were both hit with a one-place grid penalty. Take your minds back to Q2 yesterday. Esteban Ocon has put his Haas car into the gravel and we've got the red flags out. We were given a predicted start time by the FIA as to when Q2 was going to continue with 11 minutes on the clock. Mercedes took that a little bit too seriously, and they put both of their cars out into the pit lane too early. So there is a specific time where the pit lane is open to the cars to get out there early. That is just before the actual official starting time. So you'll often see the drivers coming into the pit lane and almost queuing up, ready for the green flag to drop. And then once the green flag drops, they can actually make their way out onto the track. Mercedes came out into the pit lane too early with both of their drivers. It was picked up yesterday. We knew that that was the case and we knew that was going to be investigated. We didn't know what kind of penalty that was going to have. From the Mercedes side of things, they argued that there was still 11 minutes on the clock. So did it really cost them that much? Like, everybody still had enough time to do 2 laps. They just wanted to get out first and foremost. But in the end, the FIA said, look, we've got to infringe a penalty in some way. Otherwise, you know, what's the point in us giving a time for the teams to go into the pit lane? What's the point in there being restrictions around when you can enter the pit lane if everybody just enters it whenever they feel like? So even with the fact that there was 11 minutes left in the session, and the FIA and the stewards kind of agreed with Mercedes from that aspect, that they did have enough time for everybody to do a few laps, they still wanted to impose some kind of punishment on Mercedes. So both drivers got a one-place grid drop. These one-place grid drops are getting kind of quite common, aren't they? Like, we saw a couple of them last season, a couple of them for Mercedes now, but one-place grid drop for the two Mercedes cars. So Charles Leclerc inherits second place in this grid formation that we've got for the Bahrain Grand Prix. George Russell drops down to third place behind him. And then Pierre Gasly inherits fourth place from Kimi Antonelli, with Antonelli dropping back to fifth. So both of the Mercedes cars dropping down one place apiece. Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly gaining a place because of that. So very interesting that the FIA went down that route. Can completely understand why, as we're now getting geared up for the national anthem here in Bahrain. Hopefully all 20 drivers are there. Carlos Sainz not in the bathroom this time around. Very expensive bathroom trip for him last time out in Japan. George Russell just making his way to the podium there for that national anthem. So the national anthem takes place 16 minutes before the start of the Grand Prix. And actually, the drivers have to be on the grid 16 minutes before the start of the race. So that's where you now see the drivers, as we are 17 minutes before the start of the race, all of them rushing down to the front of the grid and all of them getting into place so that they don't get fined from the national anthem, as we saw with Carlos Sainz last time around. So I love that they're highlighting that this time around. They've even got the countdown on the Sky screen to sort of say to people, look, you got to get on there. You've got to be there 16 minutes before kickoff, which is so weird, isn't it? Like a very arbitrary number, it feels like 16 minutes. But that is when they do the national anthem. They do it 16 minutes before the start of the race. We're actually waiting for Pierre Gasly, I don't think, is there yet. And Lando Norris is also in a little bit of a rush. Lando sort of makes sure that he doesn't get a fine either. All the drivers are there. Hello, Sliver and Cobra. Love the content. Thank you so much, mate. Too tired for this. Stuck in traffic. Unable to watch the GP. It's the only source of info. No worries. I will try and keep you up to date with every single thing that is going on. Of course, we will have a slightly more detailed race board to come your way. I can give you a little preview of it once it decides to load. There we are. where we can chat all things Formula One as it comes up. But for now, we'll stick to the more light-hearted one. Oh, where's the chat gone? There we are. What's my podium prediction? Piastri. I want to say Norris will get there. Leclerc, Russell, though, it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough. Verstappen the same, although the Red Bull doesn't look amazing. How long until the race? 15 minutes? Yes, indeed. Going further down the grid, though, we kind of started talking about the grid and then had to talk about Mercedes and the other drivers getting their penalties for various bits and pieces over the last couple of weeks. But Charles Leclerc does start in second place behind Oscar Piastri, George Russell and Pierre Gasly on the third row of the grid. It'll be interesting to see what Gasly can do from there. I think, unfortunately for him, this is the first race weekend where I do feel like the drivers will be able to make quite big progress forwards. You know, we've seen over the last couple of race weekends, Japan in particular, just all of the drivers stuck wherever they qualified and effectively became a Monaco Grand Prix, but in Suzuka, didn't it? Was very, very tricky on the drivers there. So hopefully we will actually get to see some drivers moving forwards. And therefore, I can't imagine Pierre Gasly finishes fourth. Even if he finishes best of the rest, kind of gets those first points on the board for Alpine, maybe a 7th, 8th, 9th place finish being the best able to him. In fact, they're talking to him now. He's excited about it. Strong qualifying yesterday. He thinks he can do something a little bit special for the Alpine team and make sure that he gets there. He was actually nearly running late for the national anthem, but Pierre Gasly thinks he can do something special. I would be very, very impressed if Gasly can finish 7th. I think that's got to be where we are slightly putting him in. If it's any higher than 7th, it is stunning. It is absolutely stunning. He has done a really good job to qualify where he is. Love from Kerala, India. Thank you. Appreciate it. You don't have to put it in the chat 17 times. Verstappen result. I think Verstappen will hope that he's going to be moving forwards. 7th place. The problem is, who does he overtake in front of him? Gasly. Can you see Verstappen getting past Norris? Or Verstappen getting past Antonelli. Antonelli's in a bit of a weird situation. Obviously, we just talked about Pierre Gasly. Antonelli, this is going to be a real test for him. A real test, because this is the first race as well where the tyre degradation is going to be a huge factor. We thought that was going to come into play last time around in Suzuka, but the relayed surface and the slightly longer hard compound tire stints that everybody was able to do meant that didn't really come into play. This time around, though, I think Antonelli's going to be under such a lot of pressure. And if he's able to hold on to those tires, that is like a real good sign for his Formula One career going forwards, because even some of the most experienced drivers on the grid struggle to maintain their tires throughout an entire Grand Prix. But Antonelli, I feel like he's going to lose position to Norris, maybe Verstappen. Hopefully he can kind of stay in front of the likes of Lewis Hamilton. That would be where I could see Antonelli kind of, at the end of the day, fighting in and around Lewis Hamilton. That would be maybe where it is. Bro ignored the Piastri comment that I made. What comment? Apologies. I don't see every single comment that comes through. Championship winner this season. It's impossible. If I speak, I will be in trouble. It's impossible to say at this point. I think he's like, I really want to say Lando Norris. I just think for Lando, it would be such a great thing. And I think Oscar will get opportunities in the future. I kind of think it's now or never for Lando Norris, as harsh as that might be, because I do just think Oscar has a higher ceiling. And I think they're at the point now where Oscar is starting to look as good as Norris, if not, a few Grand Prix here and there, looks better than Lando Norris now. So I could see it being... I don't want to say. I don't want to say either way. I hope that we get a good championship battle. And I hope it's between the two McLaren cars. But there's nothing to say that, like, Charles Leclerc couldn't enter the conversation. George Russell couldn't enter the conversation. We're only 4 races into the season post-Bahrain. It's still very early on. You look at last year, we were 4 races in. It was Max Verstappen's all the way to the bank. And then suddenly, Lando Norris kind of got put in the conversation. I don't think that conversation was ever that realistic, but he was put in the conversation nonetheless. I feel like drivers will enter the conversation as we go through the season. And as the season continues to develop and we get to see those front wing changes coming at the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, some upgrades coming to the cars in and around Spain as well. There's loads of things that are going to change throughout this season, and it's going to be a very dramatic one. We are about 10 minutes away from the start of the race. If you could hit that like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Really does support the channel. Subscribe as well. We've hit our 120,000 subscriber goal, which I kind of had coming into this triple header. So 125, is that doable within the triple header that we've got before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix? Feel like we've got to, set the boundaries as high as we can. Also, if you do want to support the channel, you can become a member, linked down below, or by clicking the join button. That really does help out the channel for the same as like a London pint a month, probably cheaper. I don't know how much a pint is in London now. A fancy coffee. You can become a member of the channel and support out everything that goes on here, and mean that I can kind of keep doing this and not have to worry about having to get a job over the weekends, which was a slight problem at one point. Super interesting to see who gets the best start here. I mean, Verstappen is very quick off the line, going to that next rung of the ladder. We're kind of slowly making our way down. Norris and Verstappen side by side is going to be, of course, an interesting battle. Always fun when those two are side by side with one another, as we saw last year. Norris 6th place, Verstappen 7th place. Verstappen usually starts well. Norris has had a few starts throughout his career and over the last season or so that haven't gone to plan fully, but it's going to be a nice little battle going down in towards turn 1 between those two. Is there going to be contact between somebody in this kind of midfieldy area? Would you put it past Verstappen and Norris to come side by side, wheel to wheel, and bump into one another in one way? I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't like to predict that kind of thing, but I could definitely imagine a world where Lando Norris and Max Verstappen maybe don't get through turn 1 and turn 2 completely intact due to some bumping of wheels with one another. They are 1 point separated in the championship. Remember, Lando Norris 62, Verstappen on 61. Carlos Sainz has finally come to fruition at Williams. This is what we were expecting from Carlos Sainz coming into this season, wasn't it? A driver who's won multiple Grand Prix with Ferrari. Seemed a little bit harsh that he was being dropped from the Ferrari setup, but understandable because Lewis Hamilton was taking his place there. So I can understand where we were going with that. But it's been a tough start to the season, hasn't it? Spin in Australia for Carlos Sainz in the wet weather conditions was not the way that he would have started his Williams career. And the fact that Albon has kind of started the season best of the rest. You look at the Drivers' Championship board, Alex Albon up in 7th place still, ahead of a Ferrari in Lewis Hamilton. I know Hamilton had that disqualification, but even so, Ocon, Stroll also 8 points behind Alex Albon as it stands. We were expecting Carlos Sainz to be right there with his teammate. Not happening as of yet, but an opportunity this time around for Carlos Sainz to get his first proper points on the board. I know he's got a point on the board, but he kind of inherited it in China because of the 3 disqualifications ahead of him. So I think an actual top 10 finish would be lovely from Carlos Sainz here. Lewis Hamilton and then Yuki Tsunoda inside of the top 10 as well. As I just mentioned, Lewis Hamilton 30 points adrift of George Russell in the championship at the moment. The sort of honeymoon period at Ferrari certainly hasn't lasted very long with Lewis Hamilton. Got that sprint win in China. Since then, it hasn't really been much to write home about with Lewis. Was very frustrated with his own performance yesterday in qualifying. Didn't have a fun time in Suzuka either. And not overly happy with how it's going inside of that Ferrari car so far, I don't think, Lewis Hamilton. Yuki Tsunoda, his second race for Red Bull. I think he would have been able to get into the points had it been a kind of regular Suzuka race. But the way that Suzuka played out, it wasn't able to make, or nobody was able to make any kind of overtakes. So he just kind of got stuck in that midfield pack. This time around, I'd like to see Yuki Tsunoda looking forwards rather than backwards. I'd like to see Tsunoda have an actual battle with a Hamilton, a Norris, an Antonelli, maybe some of those drivers a little bit further ahead of him, to really see what Yuki Tsunoda can do inside of that Red Bull, inside of the racing conditions as well. Then outside of the points, we've got the drivers that dropped out in Q2. Jack Doohan starts in 11th place. Again, that Alpine looking really good here. So maybe Jack Doohan can get some points on the board. Isaac Hadjar has started the season. I was going to say started the season well. Has been very, very good post that Australian Grand Prix disaster. So has had two very, very solid races. Was brilliant last time out in Suzuka, Isaac Hadjar. I think could again be kind of an outside shout at scoring points. I think below that is going to be tricky. They're going to need sort of strategy to play in their favor or something else to go their way. Alonso starts 13th, Ocon 14th. Ocon after that red flag. I mean, he'd be quite happy starting 14th considering he ended the session in the barriers. Alex Albon inherited 15th place. There was a mistake in qualifying yesterday where Nico Hülkenberg should have had a lap time deleted, but ended up not getting that lap time deleted until it was too late. So Alex Albon should have actually been in Q2. Nico Hülkenberg was in Q2. Bit of a weird mix-up, but that means Alex Albon starts 15th and Hülkenberg 16th. Then Liam Lawson starts down in 17th place in his second race back at the Red Bull sister team. Gabriel Bortoleto in 18th place. Lance Stroll down in 19th. Disappointing from Lance. Had a good start to the season. 10 points on the board so far this year. 19th place, not what he would wanted. And Ollie Behrman talked about how he really struggled actually after not having free practice one. A lot of rookies came in for free practice one. Ollie Behrman gave up his Haas seat. I think the Haas team wanted to get one of them out of the way in a track that they'd obviously had testing in, done hundreds of laps here during testing. But Ollie Behrman then actually said maybe that was not quite the right decision for him. He's still getting to grips with this Haas car throughout a race weekend, and not having that free practice one session kind of put him on the back foot throughout qualifying yesterday. Hello, mate. How's it going? Hello, everybody in the chat. What are we all doing? How are we all feeling? There's a lot of new people actually in here. Josh, hello. Welcome back from a torture of a run. Congrats. You got to do it though, Josh. It's a torture of a run, but you'll feel the benefits in the long term. Joker, it's gone for just a trophy. Thank you to all of the new subscriptions in there as well. I will kind of try and keep an eye on them as I can throughout the race, but we are about a minute away from the formation lap here. We can start to see some of the radio messages coming through for the various drivers. Oh, that looks weird. Why is that? Let's just make that a bit bigger for you. See some of the radio messages coming through from the drivers as they get inside of their cars and get them set up. It's looking like a mixture of soft and medium tires by the looks of things. We're looking at a two-stop race, or at least it's normally a two-stop race, but we said that about China and Japan. So let's see what it is. First time here. Thank you very much. You like my name. It's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, no problem. Thank you, Harry, for joining us. And if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 125,000 subscribers before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix comes to a close next weekend. And of course, if you want to join us post-race, we have an additional piece of content, additional live stream is the word I'm looking for, an additional live stream after the checkered flag for members only. Runs for about sort of half an hour or so. We watch the podium celebrations and just get into all the nitty gritty from each Grand Prix. Started that last time out in Japan. Wasn't too much to talk about. Hopefully there'll be a little bit more to talk about this time around in that post-race show for members. We're currently at 11 members on the channel. trying to get that up to 30 before the end of the season. Let's see what we can do. But we will move to the race board now. We are seeing some drivers getting themselves set up on the grid. The chat. Oh, hang on. We are missing. Let me grab it from the quali board. Apologies. Just been trying to shuffle a few things around on this screen, so keep it up to date. And let's have a little look. I'll put the investigations above that. No penalties at the moment. DRS has been enabled after lap 1 of the Grand Prix. We'll keep an eye on those investigations as they come through. But we are on the formation lap then, and hopefully the grid will catch up with itself. Going to start to see drivers moving away on the screen. There we are. Oscar Piastri making his way down towards turn 1. Charles Leclerc just behind. Just waiting and watching Lando Norris there. Oscar Piastri has actually disappeared away pretty swiftly. In fact, I'm just going to reset this because it seems to be a little bit behind. And better to do it on the formation lap than do it anywhere else. So it's just going to freeze for a moment. But better off doing it on the formation lap rather than during the actual thing. Here we go. 1 Hamilton, 2 Yuki, 3 Lance Stroll. I mean, if you're a gambling man, I think if you put a £1 bet on that, you'll become a millionaire. Will DRS end at the end of the season? Yes. Well, yes and no. It is, we're replacing DRS effectively with the new X mode and Y mode is actually what's coming in for the 2026 regulation. So DRS as we know it will be all over and done with. But the actual way that DRS works won't be. So there'll still be DRS zones. Whether they'll be called like X zones, Y zones, we'll have to kind of wait and see. There'll be a few things that need ironing out at the beginning of the 2026 season with such a big regulation change. Do you get a formation lap if you start in the pit lane? I think you do nowadays. You certainly didn't, but I think they have changed it around so that you do. You still have to peel into the pits though. Most of the time when you start from the pit lane, you don't get a formation lap, which is kind of one of the reasons why you never want to start from the pit lane. You obviously want to be on the front row of the grid if you can be, but sometimes it can't be helped. Esteban Ocon, obviously with that big crash yesterday, was a worry that he might have to start from the pit lane. But the Haas team have done enough to put that car back together again with him not having to start at the back of the pack. Oscar Piastri has come to a stop at the front of the racetrack then. And we're now just waiting for the likes of Ollie Behrman at the back. Everybody shuffling into place. It's going to get very tasty indeed down towards turn 1. It's really nice, actually, the run down towards turn 1 here in Bahrain. And then the fact that you do have another run down towards turn 4. So they're the two sort of big overtaking opportunities. You often see drivers go for a little lunge down in towards turn 11 as well. So don't discount that. But really, turn 1, turn 4 are the big overtaking opportunities. And therefore, if you do get overtaken down towards turn 1 at the start of the Grand Prix, there's nothing to stop you from coming right back at them down towards turn 4. So it's not going to be over until the first lap is really completed. Will we know where everybody is going to shuffle in terms of their positioning? But everybody has taken to the track. The green flag at the back of the pack is waved, and we're going to get underway here in Bahrain. Oscar Piastri starts at the front of the Grand Prix. George Russell gets an incredible launch down the outside of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's going to try and cover him up the inside. Russell's going to try and go for the lead here. And Russell tries to go around the outside of Piastri, doesn't get it done though. Lando Norris has also been electric off the start line and is ahead of Charles Leclerc. So Piastri, Russell, Norris now our top three. Sparks are flying off Kimi Antonelli's car as he's battling side by side with Pierre Gasly. Gasly and Sainz also having a little tussle as they come through the middle part of the lap. Kimi Antonelli, what's gone on there? A little touch. And Antonelli's gone wide. And Antonelli's gone through the dust. Oh my goodness me. That is not what you want to see if you're Kimi Antonelli, but he's done okay. He's back onto the track and side by side with Carlos Sainz, but Carlos Sainz is going to be able to get the better of the youngster in the Mercedes car. So Antonelli now down into 7th place. Max Verstappen has been left watching and wondering in 8th place as he's now under pressure from Lewis Hamilton, but Oscar Piastri has maintained the lead at the front of the pack. George Russell, what a start that was. He nearly took the lead of the Grand Prix, tried to go all the way around the outside of Oscar Piastri at turn 1. Piastri then just closed in the door as they got towards turn 2. But George Russell up into 2nd place. Lando Norris, I also want to see how he got on. That must have been an electric start from Lando Norris from 6th up to 3rd before he even knew it. Charles Leclerc down to 4th now, has lost a couple of positions. And Pierre Gasly also lost a position also to Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz has gained a couple up into 6th place. Antonelli in 7th. Then it's Verstappen, Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda still in 10th place. Inside of the point scoring places, the sparks are flying as we see Esteban Ocon going side by side with Alex Albon. Oh my goodness me. Oh, sorry, it's Ollie Behrman side by side with Alex Albon. It is chaos at the moment. There is drivers going for moves left, right, and centre. Ollie Behrman also up 15 places. That's why I thought it was Esteban Ocon. Behrman already up into 15th. The two Stake Sauber cars side by side with one another through turn 4 as Bortoletto and Hulkenberg are battling for 19th and 20th place. Goodness gracious me. Another big lockup from Antonelli. He's struggling on those tyres here in Bahrain. And Max Verstappen trying to be the beneficiary of that, but Verstappen now down in 8th place and still chasing the back of Kimi Antonelli with no avail. Carlos Sainz being the man who made those moves forwards, meaning Max Verstappen has lost 1 grid position since the start of the Grand Prix. Goodness me. Piastri, Russell and Norris still our top 3. Not sure why multi-viewer is being a little bit awkward in terms of the track map, but there we are. Just reset that and see if we can give it a go. Oscar Piastri just coming down towards turn 1. He's escaped away from the DRS range of George Russell. Russell now 1.1 seconds behind. Lando Norris, though, with DRS behind him. Charles Leclerc started on the medium tyre in 4th place, so his strategy will be completely different to those around him. Gasly has actually done very well to hold on to 5th place inside of that Alpine. Williams have Sainz in 6th place. Antonelli 7th, Verstappen 8th, Hamilton 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda down in 10th. But the drivers now settling into position a touch, knowing that tyre degradation is going to be such a key factor here. And Lando Norris is actually under investigation. Incident involving car number 4, false start out of position. That is usually a slam dunk penalty if you are out of position at the start. So Lando Norris could be given a penalty fairly soon. And does that explain why Lando Norris was able to jump up from 6th place to 3rd place so quickly? So keep an eye on that. But an investigation on Lando Norris's start is underway with the stewards right now. Oscar Piastri is starting to run away 1.5 seconds ahead of George Russell. It's looking like an Oscar Piastri domination is incoming. It's a little bit early to call it, 4 laps in, but he's looking very swift indeed. Russell is still under pressure from Norris. Norris has that DRS open, but isn't actually able to catch the back of the Mercedes car too quickly. The Mercedes running a slightly lower downforce setup than the McLaren. So it's going to be very tricky for Lando Norris to get within striking distance of George Russell down those straights. Pierre Gasly just trying his best to sit inside of the DRS range of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc has dropped out of DRS range of Lando Norris ahead, so Gasly just trying to sit in and keep his tyres as clean as possible whilst disappearing up the road from Carlos Sainz, because Carlos Sainz has DRS also. Antonelli, Verstappen. It's a bit of a DRS train behind Charles Leclerc in 4th place at the moment. But it looks like Lando Norris, the investigation is continuing on, and that looks like it's going to be pretty much a slam dunk penalty for Lando Norris. So Norris now has to keep an eye on how many seconds he can be ahead. And we're looking at Piastri setting another fastest lap of the race. He's running away at the front. Yuki Tsunoda, keep an eye on him as well. The Japanese driver still within DRS range of Lewis Hamilton. But as I said, a big DRS train behind Charles Leclerc at the moment. The two Ferraris starting on the medium compound tyres. So keeping them in touch with the rest of the pack. Jack Doohan running down in P11 as well, inside DRS range of the point scoring places. But Ocon has DRS. It's actually Alex Albon is the first driver outside of that DRS train, I think. Oh, and Carlos Sainz is there side by side with Antonelli. Antonelli decides to try and make a move on the experienced Spaniard. And Antonelli, a dive up the inside at turn 1. Stunning little move from him. And Carlos Sainz has been outdone. Max Verstappen now also looking at Carlos Sainz as well. And because Carlos Sainz was out of position through turn 1 and turn 2, it opened the door for Max Verstappen through to turn 4. They go side by side through turns 5 and 6. But Max Verstappen keeps his foot in. And Max Verstappen gets ahead of Carlos Sainz as well. So Sainz back down to 8th place where he started. And Verstappen on the radio, not very happy about Carlos Sainz not leaving him much room to maneuver. I think Max Verstappen was fully off the racetrack at one point there. Did he manage to keep his tyres just inside? Lando Norris. Let's look at this start from Lando Norris. He does get away incredibly quickly and gets by the Alpine and the Mercedes before they've even really had an opportunity to think about it. Round the outside of turn 1. Goes side by side with Charles Leclerc through turn 2 and turn 3, but has the better run down towards turn 4. That's how Lando Norris managed to get those positions. But as we can see, is under investigation. False start and out of position. So we'll likely pick up a 5-second penalty, I would imagine. It is still under... Oh, and Max Verstappen, yeah, actually did highlight it. So maybe it wasn't a false start as such. It was more that Lando Norris's front tyres were not inside of the pit box as they should be. I think he just stopped a little bit too late in the pit box and his front tyres had actually gone past the line where they're allowed to be. So false start / being in the wrong position for Lando Norris there at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz also did incredibly well to get past a couple of drivers. Now back down to 8th place is Carlos Sainz. I think that's going to be a penalty for Lando Norris coming his way, though. His teammate Oscar Piastri disappearing up the road, now 2.5 seconds ahead of George Russell. George Russell still trying to keep his Mercedes car within touching distance of his first victory of the season. Lando Norris in 3rd at the moment, but a penalty inbound. Then Charles Leclerc in 4th place. Pierre Gasly is in DRS range of Charles Leclerc and is just sticking to the back of the Monegasque driver for as long as he can, looking for a very, very solid point scoring finish if Gasly can continue on the same vein of form that he's been in so far this Bahrain Grand Prix weekend. Kimi Antonelli, that is such a late breaking maneuver. Just seeing the replay of his overtake on Carlos Sainz now. But absolute dive bomb up the inside from Kimi Antonelli. Almost sort of Daniel Ricciardo-esque in that super late on the brakes. Dives up the inside, puts his nose on the apex and just says to Carlos Sainz, that is all that you're going to be able to do. Isaac Hadjar has just pulled into the pit lane as well. Isaac Hadjar deciding to go early and getting into the pits. Nico Hulkenberg has also pitted as well so far in this race. But that move from Antonelli, very, very nice indeed. Now 1.4 seconds off the back of Pierre Gasly. Let's see if Antonelli can get himself back up into 5th place. Max Verstappen also able to get past Carlos Sainz in those same few corners. And Verstappen up into 7th. Carlos Sainz now under pressure from Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Yuki Tsunoda still in the point-scoring places. But Jack Doohan not making it easy for him. And Gasly actually on the radio, just reminding the Alpine team about what's happening in front of him, saying that Charles Leclerc is already struggling on the medium tyre. That does not bode well for the rest of the Grand Prix, especially for those guys that need to still use the medium tyre. Maybe Leclerc will be happy to see the back of the medium and swap onto the hards or maybe even some softs as the race progresses. What happened with Hadjar? Decided to come into the pits, did Isaac Hadjar. I don't think there was any particular problem. I couldn't see anything come up on the radio. Hadjar did indeed come into pit, and there is the confirmation. It's a 5-second time penalty for Lando Norris for that false start and being out of position. So you can see it there just in the bottom of the screen. Lando Norris under investigation, and now a 5-second time penalty for being out of position in his grid box. So add on 5 seconds to Lando Norris's time at the end of the Grand Prix as we start lap 8 of this race. And he's just being told on the radio. And Lando Norris being told on the radio, you know what, 5 seconds. It's not that bad, mate. If you can get yourself past George Russell in and amongst this. And yeah, Max Verstappen, you can see from his onboard that he can see Lando Norris is just that little bit too far forward. Gets a good launch though, Lando Norris. Made up those places. Needs to get in front of George Russell if possible, because they now need to start making a bit of a gap to the rest of the field so that that 5-second penalty doesn't cause him too much trouble over the course of the entire Grand Prix. Still 50 laps left to go, of course. But Lando Norris with the better pace at the moment, closing into the back of George Russell constantly. I think the problem that they'll have, and this is something that we saw during qualifying, is the Mercedes car is running a slightly lower downforce setup, a slightly skinnier rear wing, and therefore that extra bit of drag on the McLaren, even with the DRS, will just mean that Lando Norris's ability to get right underneath the rear wing of George Russell, especially through the faster first and third sectors, will be that bit trickier for him. But getting ever closer still. And Charles Leclerc getting frustrated with his brakes being inconsistent. Carlos Sainz tries to defend from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton nearly pushed onto the outside of the racetrack. Carlos Sainz tries to come back at him through turn 5 and turn 6. The Williams car not giving up that position easily. And Carlos Sainz actually does get that position back from Lewis Hamilton. They are veered to the inside of the racetrack between turns 3 and turns 4. Hamilton is going to try again down at turn 8. And through turn 9, they're now going. Max Verstappen trying to be... Yuki Tsunoda trying to be opportunistic, seeing that Hamilton and Sainz are battling with one another and trying to take the opportunity to get ahead of them. So these three now all with DRS. Jack Doohan also in the background as well. Hamilton versus Sainz, and Hamilton down towards turn 11 is going to make the move, and Hamilton is going to get up into that better position. That's also going to mean Carlos Sainz runs wide and opens the door for Yuki Tsunoda. Carlos Sainz is losing positions 2 at a time so far in this race. He got outdone by Antonelli and Verstappen within a few corners of one another. And now Hamilton and Tsunoda have both been able to jump in front of Carlos Sainz. So Carlos down into 10th place. Still a point scoring position though for the Williams car. Let's see. This battle between Lando Norris doesn't quite play out. Here comes Kimi Antonelli on Pierre Gasly. And Kimi Antonelli trying to go down the inside, but Pierre Gasly aware of it and just closes the door down towards turn 2. This is going to go all the way down to turn 4, though, and this is why Bahrain is so good for these overtaking maneuvers. Kimi Antonelli decides to try and go around the outside, the switchback through turn 5. Antonelli holds on, a little wiggle from the Mercedes, but it's a brilliant move from Antonelli. Round turn 4, gets the switchback on him. And now Gasly has to be worried about Max Verstappen also. And this is the thing, you put yourself slightly out of position, as we just saw with Carlos Sainz. You defend, you put yourself out of position, and if one driver can get past, why not then two? Gasly now still out of position, down towards turn 10. Max Verstappen is going to have the DRS open through towards turn 11. So is Pierre Gasly, though. Gasly trying to move to the inside to defend from Max Verstappen. Verstappen thinks better of it. And the Alpine now under a tirade of attacks from behind. Antonelli is able to move up into 5th place. Gasly into 6th, but under pressure from Verstappen. And goodness gracious me, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, box for Lando Norris. Only lap 11 of the Grand Prix. A little bit earlier than I was maybe expecting, but Norris does indeed come into the pits. Maybe the McLaren team seeing an opportunity to get out in a little bit of clean air. Of course, they can't touch the car for 5 seconds. Is going to have to deal with that 5-second penalty that he was given. Let's see where Lando Norris comes out then. Gasly also comes in. Verstappen comes in also. And Norris is going to actually come out in a nice bit of clean air. I think McLaren saw that and got out in it. Unfortunately for Verstappen, he is going to come out behind Esteban Ocon. Norris and Gasly have come out really nicely there. So Norris and Gasly have a nice little chunk of time in front of them to Gabriel Bortoleto. And Ollie Behrman, actually. No, sorry, Esteban Ocon trying to have a little go at Pierre Gasly. No love lost between these two Frenchmen, of course. Ocon sent away from the Alpine team at the end of last season. Gasly has become their number 1. And Gasly just about keeps that position ahead of Esteban Ocon for now. But Ocon not wanting to give it to him easily. Yeah, Max Verstappen is the loser there in a way, because Ocon is just going to cause a little bit of a headache for Verstappen. Hasn't come out in too much clean air compared to Lando Norris ahead. Oh, and it was a slow stop. That's why. It was a very slow stop from Verstappen. What happened here then? Which tyre was it? Nothing. Don't know why. The traffic light, which tells you when you can go, was actually still red for Max Verstappen. That's why he ended up having a slow stop and why he's ended up behind Esteban Ocon, which is going to have a knock-on effect for the rest of his race. We're now seeing Yuki Tsunoda coming into the pits also, hence why he's tumbling down the timing sheets. You can see which drivers have pitted in terms of the stops. It does say how many stops they've done to the right-hand side of how many laps they've completed on that set of tyres. So you can see Lando Norris at the front of the pack that has already stopped in 13th place. Everybody ahead of Lando Norris yet to have pitted. Verstappen and Sainz now also under investigation. That incident involving the two of them is being looked at by the stewards. So we'll see if either of those two ends up with a penalty in one way or another. If I could be as bold as to say, if you could hit the like button, that would be absolutely amazing. Really does help out the channel. Maybe subscribe if you are new to the channel as well. But we are going to see a tremendous end to this Grand Prix. It feels like it's just going to keep building from this point. We are looking at Piastri, a very dominant start to the race from him. But everybody else behind is going to be in a weird position. Norris and Verstappen already having pitted. Piastri struggling on his tyres, supposedly, but maybe not the gap, the clean air that they want Piastri to go into. Russell, of course. And here comes Kimi Antonelli into the pits for the Mercedes team. So Antonelli deciding to get onto a fresh set of boots in this Grand Prix. Let's see where Antonelli comes out and whether or not there's a bit of a window of opportunity. And Antonelli comes out. There goes Norris and Gasly, Bortoletto and Ocon having a little battle with one another. Max Verstappen trying to get past Esteban Ocon, and Kimi Antonelli actually comes out behind Max Verstappen. So that isn't where Antonelli would like to be. Looks like the undercut might be very strong here, in fact, because Antonelli was well ahead of Max Verstappen before the pit stop. Swapped around. Looking at Yuki Tsunoda's on board. Is it something wrong with the light? And I think it is the Red Bull pit stop light. I don't think they're working because Max Verstappen had the exact same issue as Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda now comes out behind Isaac Hadjar, of all people, in the second Red Bull team. George Russell pulls into the pits then and leaves Oscar Piastri all alone at the front of the race. Leclerc and Hamilton continue on, of course, being on the medium tyre at the start of the race. Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Ollie Behrman still yet to have pitted also. But it's starting to sort of shuffle out a touch here. Lando Norris ahead of Pierre Gasly of the drivers that have pitted. Bortoletto a little bit out of position in 12th, although Bortoletto now coming into the pits is going to put him back where he should be, I think. Was he coming into the pits? Yeah, he was indeed. Thought I saw him peeling in. Ferrari needs to pit. Ferrari on a different strategy. They've started on the medium compound tyre, so you can see the drivers on the mediums, Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, will go that little bit longer. George Russell has come out still ahead of Lando Norris, and George Russell actually just dispatching Fernando Alonso. So let's see the gap then. Norris is only 2 seconds adrift of George Russell, even with that 5-second stop, but Fernando Alonso in between the two of them. So still a lot of work to do for Lando Norris in this if he wants to get up towards the top end of the grid. Oscar Piastri going very long indeed on this first stint. Of course, he does have a good gap. If Oscar Piastri pits, he should come out in and around Carlos Sainz at this point in time, and does pit. Oscar Piastri comes into the pit lane for the McLaren team then. So let's see if my maths was correct. I think he should come out in and around so Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon in terms of those lap times. But as long as it's a good stop, and it very swift stop indeed from the McLaren team, as you'd expect, a 2.3 second stop. There come the Williamses in the back of the picture. Is he going to get ahead of those Williams cars, though? That's where he really wants to be. It's going to be Kite. There we go. Just about, yeah. Just ahead of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz actually peels into the pit. So Piastri just ahead of Alex Albon. George Russell behind. And Lando Norris has finally been able to get in front of Fernando Alonso. But that cost him a little bit of time. Russell able to run away a touch. So now Norris 3 seconds adrift of George Russell's Mercedes car. We're looking at Max Verstappen. Still having a little look at the back of Esteban Ocon. Hasn't been able to get in front of the Haas. And that Red Bull just does not look set up for overtaking. Verstappen on the harder compound tyre, of course, as well. Kimi Antonelli now right under the rear wing of the 4-time world champion and current world champion. Oscar Piastri, P3. Don't worry, it's because he's pitted. The two Ferraris yet to have pitted, so Oscar Piastri does look a little bit out of position. George Russell, though, is starting to get back up towards the top end. And Russell actually getting Albon out of the way puts him 2 seconds behind Oscar Piastri. So let's see if Russell has the kind of pace in this second stint to be able to close the gap to the front of the pack. Piastri had a much better pace in that first stint on the soft compound tyre. Maybe the medium is where the Mercedes car will start to come to fruition. Of course, we do have the temperature of the track sort of slowly coming down. It's not cool by any means, but we know that the Mercedes car does like slightly cooler temperatures. So that could also play into their hands as the track starts to get colder and colder. We then see Pierre Gasly just also making his way past Fernando Alonso. Alonso yet to have pitted in his Aston Martin on the medium tyre. And Charles Leclerc wanting to go for Plan D already. Plan D for Delta, he says on the radio in his Ferrari car. So maybe not going the way that Ferrari expected. Plans A, B, and C already out of the window down at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen received no penalty, by the way, for that investigation that was going on. And Lando Norris has served his 5-second time penalty in the pit stops. Here comes Kimi Antonelli, still looking at the rear wing of Max Verstappen. Verstappen, though, inside of the DRS range of Esteban Ocon, just meaning that Antonelli can't quite have a go at the champion just yet. I'm sure he'd absolutely love a little tete-a-tete with Max Verstappen. Yeah, Plan D already is a little bit insane, isn't it? Ferrari should build a gap and then pit. You can't really build a gap when Oscar Piastri is lapping a second quicker than you. You look at Charles Leclerc's time, a 1:39 dead. Hamilton, a 1:39.4. Piastri in the 1:38. Same with Russell, a 1:38. Lando Norris, a 1:38.3. But Norris was still dealing with some traffic and other drivers in front of him. Gasly now up into 6th place. We're starting to see the likes of Alonso and Albon coming in to take their first pit stops of the race, hoping that being on the fresher tyres will give them the advantage. Feels like the undercut is the stronger move here, coming in that little bit earlier. Albon with a very slow stop, actually. And Fernando Alonso coming out as well. Alonso comes out 19th, Albon 16th. Kimi Antonelli then has a little look at Max Verstappen, not this time around through turn 4. Has to back out a touch through turn 5, turn 6, but battling still down towards the slow turn 8. Kimi Antonelli following behind Max Verstappen closely. Charles Leclerc still leading this Grand Prix at the moment then, but Piastri just 14 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc at the front of the pack. Lose about 22, 23 seconds on a pit stop here. Charles Leclerc, Delta, he wants to change his... Nope, they're committed. Charles Leclerc does come in, trusting the Ferrari pit wall team. Charles Leclerc coming in, and Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be a double stack, actually, for the Ferrari drivers. They both come in one after another. That releases Oscar Piastri back into the lead of the Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is going to come out behind Pierre Gasly. So Gasly has made up a position there. Remember, Gasly was stuck behind Charles Leclerc in the opening laps of the race. Charles Leclerc now finds himself behind the Alpine. And Lewis Hamilton has dropped out of the points. Hamilton comes out behind Tsunoda, just seeing Hadjar and Sainz swap positions just behind. Sainz moving up into 12th place. And Verstappen saying that there's no grip at all on his hard compound tyre. Esteban Ocon has done exceptionally well here by pitting very early indeed. Ocon up into 6th place, and that Haas car looking stunningly quick. Ollie Behrman's not done too badly either, from 20th up into 14th. And now you can see why the Haas team were so frustrated with their qualifying yesterday. Had they started a little bit higher up, Ocon might be in the mix for some real ridiculous points here. But Ocon in 6th at the moment. Gasly has just been overtaken by Charles Leclerc. So we've got the two Alpine, well, ex-Alpine teammates side by side. Gasly 5th, Ocon 6th. There is a couple of seconds between the two of them. So we'll see if that closes up. And we see a battle between those two once more. Haas Toyota are actually strong. Haas looking brilliant here. The pace is exceptional from Esteban Ocon. Obviously came in that little bit earlier for the pit stop, but still had to get the laps in and found a little bit of clean air, showed the pace that he's got, and is flying. Lewis Hamilton making a move. DRS open. Yuki Tsunoda has to tuck in behind the Ferrari. And Yuki Tsunoda now drops out of the point scoring places. Hamilton up into 10th. Tsunoda down to 11th. Max Verstappen still on the hard tyre and just struggling. Going for a slightly different strategy in the middle. Maybe opting to go onto the hards and then back onto the softs at the end if he's got a set, or maybe a set of mediums at the end for Max Verstappen. That was a very nice move from Carlos Sainz, actually, on Isaac Hadjar. And then seeing a replay of the move as Pierre Gasly got overtaken and Charles Leclerc moved back in front of the Alpine into 4th spot. So we are, as we were before, the pit stops when it comes to the top 5. Piastri, Russell, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly. Esteban Ocon, though, is the man who's wangled his way into the top 10. It's a solid 6th place that Esteban Ocon is in right now. Max Verstappen behind just cannot get the pace to have a go at Esteban Ocon. Antonelli then sits frustrated behind in 8th place as well, looking at the back of the Red Bull, knowing that he's got more pace in the tank if he was given some clean air. Jack Doohan's Alpine is up into 9th place. His first points available to him. The Alpine looking really solid indeed. And Lewis Hamilton in 10th place has just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well. So Hamilton finding much more pace on these medium tyres. Does that mean he's going to be able to close the gap? Still 2.5 seconds behind Jack Doohan. And Nico Hülkenberg is having an absolute nightmare of a race. I think Hülkenberg is coming in once again by the looks of things. Oh no, sorry, just being overtaken by Albon. Here comes Kimi Antonelli on Max Verstappen. Can Kimi Antonelli do it? Down towards turn 4, goes for the move, and Antonelli is up in front of Max Verstappen. And some applause in the garage indeed. We had the Mercedes in front of the Red Bull. Antonelli moves past Max Verstappen. He's back up into 7th place. Next up on the hit list for Antonelli is Esteban Ocon. And we've seen some stunning moves from Antonelli in this Grand Prix. He is really late on the brakes, isn't he? The Italian. The confidence inside of that Mercedes car already. You can understand why he is very quickly becoming quite a bit of a fan favourite. Kimi Antonelli up into 7th. 1.8 seconds the gap, though, to Esteban Ocon ahead. So keep your eyes peeled on the Italian. Jack Doohan is also now actually closing into the back of Max Verstappen. Verstappen lost a few tenths there in that battle with Antonelli. That's given Jack Doohan the opportunity to close on in. Max Verstappen is complaining on the radio that everything is overheating. Luckily, he's still within DRS range of Antonelli for now, but that is not going to be the case for long. Antonelli closing in on the back of Esteban Ocon, and Jack Doohan in the Alpine is going to be fighting with Max Verstappen fairly soon. Lewis Hamilton is also putting in some incredibly quick laps behind to just close in. A 1:37.3 from Lewis Hamilton just goes to show that he is on an absolute tear now he's on that fresh set of rubber. Oscar Piastri, we haven't really seen much of at the front of the pack. Just to give you an update on him, 4 seconds ahead of George Russell in 2nd. Lando Norris is slowly closing in, though, on George Russell. That gap was 3 seconds after the pit stops. Now down to 1.279. Can he get in front of that Mercedes and make it a McLaren 1-2 here in Bahrain? With 30-odd laps left to go. Lewis Hamilton is absolutely flying, and having a little look at Jack Doohan into turn 11, decides against it this time around. But that Ferrari is going to be making its way past the Alpine fairly soon, you would imagine. He looks so racy. Now he's on that second set of medium tyres. Does Lewis Hamilton come to life all of a sudden? And after a pretty torrid first stint, Hamilton is now having a little go at the back of Jack Doohan. Let's see. Max Verstappen outside of DRS range. Jack Doohan has just about got DRS, though. Hamilton, though, I don't think is going to be that put off by the fact that Doohan has that DRS. Is still going to look up the inside. He's going to go late on the brakes as Lewis Hamilton down towards turn 1 and gets the job done on the apex. Doohan has to give up the place, and Hamilton moves up into 9th. They're both then going to have DRS once again down towards turn 4. But surely that Ferrari, the better traction off turn 3, is just going to get away from him. And now we're looking at a Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen battle for 8th place. Ollie Behrman having a little go at the back of Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar trying to defend through turn 3, but then Behrman gets the run at him again at turn 4. Decides to go around the outside, and that's a very slick overtaking maneuver from Ollie Behrman as well, who moves up into 13th place. Hamilton deciding not to wait any longer, and Hamilton down towards turn 11, DRS open, gets done with Max Verstappen as well. Hamilton is on an absolute tear right now. Didn't even wait a lap. 8 corners later, Hamilton makes his move past and also gets the move done on Max Verstappen. Hamilton up into 8th place then, and 1.6 seconds adrift of Antonelli. Antonelli hasn't been able to close in that 2-second gap to Esteban Ocon ahead. It's maybe just been sort of holding onto his tyres a touch, but Hamilton now 1.5 seconds behind Antonelli. And Verstappen on the radio, really not happy at all with that Red Bull. Can't even brake, he says on the radio. Jack Doohan still right underneath the rear wing of Verstappen. Hamilton has made his way through that pair, but Doohan still looking at scoring his first points in Formula 1. His 5th Grand Prix, of course, after taking part in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for the team at the end of last season. And goodness me, does feel like all of the pack are closing in on one another. In fact, looking at Charles Leclerc right now, Leclerc, in and amongst whilst we've been watching Hamilton, has actually closed into the back of Lando Norris. So Lando Norris is under pressure from Charles Leclerc now. Leclerc 4th at the moment. And Norris still closing in on Russell as well, as about a second adrift. Problem is, Norris is now going to be looking in his rearview mirrors more than he's looking at Russell ahead of him. Oscar Piastri, 5 seconds ahead in the lead. Piastri just making this look fairly easy. Everybody else is having a very tricky, track limits infringement for Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli given a, track limits infringe. As Charles Leclerc has a little look at it. Charles Leclerc trying to go down towards turn 1 and get ahead of the McLaren, but isn't able to do it this time around, and Lando defends towards turn 4. Kimi Antonelli has been given a black and white flag for track limits violations. You can see there are 5 track limits violations for Kimi Antonelli so far in the race already. Isaac Hadjar has got 3 also. So Kimi Antonelli needs to be a little bit careful. 5-second penalty for... Is that a double 5-second penalty for Lando Norris? Have I missed something there? He's got 2 little 5-second penalties. I know that he's already served 1. He hasn't been given a second 5-second penalty, has he? Lando Norris. I keep you up to date with that, whether that's just a little glitch that's come through. And Charles Leclerc does go for it down in towards turn 1, but way too deep in the end, and Lando Norris able to keep 3rd place fairly comfortably. Lewis Hamilton gaining on Kimi Antonelli now. Hamilton half a second behind the Italian, the driver who took his seat at Mercedes. Lando Norris closing in. Charles Leclerc, bit of a problem. Oop. And Hamilton might just go for it now. Hamilton is going to go for it now. And Leclerc's going to try and go around the outside of turn 4. We've got Leclerc making a move at turn 4. Hamilton making a move at turn 1. And both of the Ferraris making up a position. Leclerc is up into 3rd place. That's dropped Lando Norris down to 4th. And Lewis Hamilton is up into 7th, dropping Kimi Antonelli down into 8th place. The Ferraris have found some obscene pace in this second stint of the race. I know that they're sort of 3-4 laps better off in terms of tyre deg, but Leclerc and Hamilton absolutely flying. And the Ferrari master plan is indeed in place. Started on the medium tyre, of course. Now on the medium tyre in the second stint. The only thing that's going to play, well, could play in their favour is they've got to use, obviously, another type of tyre. Do they have a fresh set of softs? Could they go long in this middle stint once again? And then maybe go on to the softs at the end of the Grand Prix and give them a very racy tyre to finish. Charles Leclerc, though, doesn't need any racier a tyre than he's already got. Hamilton dispatched Kimi Antonelli fairly comfortably down towards turn 1 and is now already looking at the back of Esteban Ocon as they come around the final couple of corners. Hamilton's going to make a move again, I think, here. He is right under the rear wing of Esteban Ocon. Hamilton has very swiftly gotten throh Doohan, Verstappen, Antonelli, and now Esteban Ocon next on the list of drivers that cannot keep the 7-time world champion at bay. DRS is wide open for Lewis Hamilton. He's going to dart up the inside, and he's going to get that move done before they even reach the corner. Hits the apex. Esteban Ocon has to say, I haven't got enough. And Lewis Hamilton moves up into 6th place. Is a bit more of a gap now to Pierre Gasly, a 4-second gap that Hamilton needs to make up to the Alpine in front. Although, having said that, Hamilton did a 1:37.6. Gasly was a 1:38.6. So Hamilton now absolutely tearing it away out on track. Lando Norris is also more than a second and a half behind Charles Leclerc already. So both of the Ferraris absolutely invigorated by this strategy decision that they've made. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton starting on the medium tyre. And now we're looking at the two Ferraris having so much more pace. It did make you wonder. They both lost a couple of positions in the pit stops, but they've more than made up for that now. Leclerc absolutely rattling along. Leclerc 0.6 of a second quicker than George Russell last lap and is now closing into the back of George Russell and a second place finish. Lewis Hamilton in 6th spot is 3.5 seconds adrift of Gasly, but again was a second or so quicker than Pierre Gasly on the last lap as we're heading towards the middle portion of the race. Max Verstappen has decided to pit, I think, on the hard compound tyre after 16 laps on them. Absolutely hated being on those hard compound tyres by the looks of things. So into the pits he comes. It is a set of mediums. Oh, and it's a really slow stop. The front right tyre just wouldn't come off that Red Bull car. And that is 2 really slow pit stops from Max Verstappen in this Grand Prix. The first because the lights wouldn't work in the pit box. The second because his front right tyre just got stuck. Wow. Goodness gracious me. It is not going well if you're a Max Verstappen fan. He now finds himself stone dead last in Verstappen's... Wow. And to think Max Verstappen was victorious just a week ago in Japan. He's now in 20th spot. And this is going to have to be some kind of Max Verstappen masterclass if he is going to get anywhere close to the points that we were expecting him to get coming into this weekend. Oh, Lando Norris being told on the radio, it's not over yet. We will get an opportunity. It's because Ferrari had burned through their mediums, so the McLaren team still think that it's going to fall towards their favour in the final stint of the race. So Lando Norris 9 seconds off the back of Piastri. Yeah, with that 5-second penalty, would be right there in second spot, wouldn't he, Lando Norris? But that's not quite how it's played. And in comes Kimi Antonelli and Esteban Ocon. The second round of pit stops starting to get underway here then. It feels like a long way to go on a set of soft tyres for Kimi Antonelli, but the Mercedes team thinking they can do it. Antonelli actually just comes out behind Esteban Ocon, and there is going to be 2 cars racing, and Kimi Antonelli gets a little bit out of shape, and Antonelli then ends up behind Lawson and Stroll. That did not work out very nicely for the Italian, and he's going to have to make some more overtaking maneuvers. Here he goes then on Liam Lawson and gets at least one of those positions back. Antonelli then pits and is in 16th spot on a set of scrubbed soft compound tyres. And yeah, it's just been a nightmare for Max Verstappen in terms of the pit stops today. And Verstappen in 18th place. It's just something wrong with the light in the Red Bull garage. And it seems to be broken. And obviously the driver can't go until he's given it. And it's just so frustrating if you're a Max Verstappen fan. Looking at Oscar Piastri, though, is now 6.5 seconds to the good in front of George Russell. Charles Leclerc was making up a big amount of ground to George Russell, has just fallen away a touch in the last lap or so, and is now sitting sort of 1.5 seconds behind Russell and isn't able to close that gap anymore. Here comes Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan into the pits. Gasly in and out. Jack Doohan a little bit slower of a stop, but the Alpines both coming in on the same lap. Gasly is going to come out fairly nicely, actually, Pierre Gasly, in a nice bit of room. You can see just coming towards turn 5 on your pictures now through the middle part of the lap. So he's got a nice gap to Behrman ahead. So some clean air for Pierre Gasly to run into and show what kind of pace he has got on the hard compound tyre. Max Verstappen, though, starting to scythe through the back of the pack, now up into 14th place, made fairly quick work of Lawson and Stroll there. Antonelli is the driver that was ahead of Max Verstappen before the pit stops. So back to almost where he should be. A second and a half, adrift of Antonelli. And Lando Norris saying that his red light is on and he can't turn it off. Wonder what red light he means by that. Something on the steering wheel, most likely, but which one? There'll be a lot of red lights on there. George Russell, through turn 1 he comes. Charles Leclerc, very close behind. You can see Lando Norris in your picture as well. They'll all be able to see one another in their wing mirrors. And Lando Norris can see both of the drivers ahead. Oscar Piastri, though, just flying away from this pack. We'll just about be able to see him on the start-finish straight, will Lando Norris. But Lewis Hamilton also up into 5th place now, and Hamilton really rattling along still. A 1:37.2 the last lap from Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen, though, is on a 1:36.1. So just as goes to show, as soon as you get on those new tyres, it really does help you out a dramatic amount. But you can't swap tyres every other lap. Norris's red light has gone off now, so that's all good. Two-stop still looking the best, says James Vowles. So Ocon and Antonelli and Verstappen, supposedly having done both of their stops, will continue to the end. Gasly in that mix as well. On the hard compound tyre, has made his second stop. Ooh, and a little bit of back and forth as Tsunoda and Sainz have a little battle with one another. Ooh. There's something came off of Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull car there. Tsunoda running in 7th place behind Carlos Sainz in 6th. Russell and Leclerc also keeping an eye on one another. As I say, Leclerc's just kind of slotted into that 2.5 behind Russell now and isn't able to close up that gap as quickly as he was initially. Do I think Merck's seemingly 3-stop strategy will pay off? It does look like, ooh, there's a little bit of debris down towards turn 2, turn 3, as we watch Kimi Antonelli opening up the DRS and trying to get in front of Fernando Alonso to stick with Esteban Ocon. Has been able to do so. Interesting that Esteban Ocon has been able to keep himself ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Those two have been running around with one another for a little while. In terms of the 3-stop, I mean, if you look at Antonelli's lap times, they do look stunning at this moment in time. A 136.6 from Kimi Antonelli. You know, Oscar Piastri's doing a 137.5 at the front of the pack. George Russell's just done a 130 dead. So maybe the 3-stop strategy will work in their favor. Your problem is you've got to make up that 20 seconds. If everybody else does a 2-stop and you do a 3-stop, that 22 seconds extra that you spend in the pits, you've got to make up throughout the entire Grand Prix. And you know what? If Mercedes think that they can make up that 20 seconds, absolutely fair to them. Like, fair enough, go for it. But it feels like a long time to have to make up inside of the next few laps. Especially if Antonelli's going to finish sort of... You'd imagine Antonelli's hoping for maybe a 5th, 6th place finish, if not better. Behind them, we can see Jack Doohan. And Gasly versus Behrman is there as well. Gasly does get in front of Ollie Behrman. Gasly having done his 2nd stop as well. So Albon, Tsunoda, Sainz now in front of him. And Gasly has kind of used up all of that lovely bit of clean air that he had, unfortunately. So Gasly came out behind Behrman. Had a lovely bit. Oh, safety car. Safety car has been called. Oh my goodness, that is going to really mix up the pack. Safety car, those drivers that haven't made their 2nd pit stop yet, surely this is the opportunity to do so. Here comes Oscar Piastri round the final corner. Is Piastri going to pit? And Piastri is going to pit. Piastri comes in absolutely perfect for Oscar Piastri in this. George Russell surely has to follow suit. So does Leclerc. And this is going to mix up the strategies completely then. Lando Norris is also going to try and come in. It's perfect for Piastri. Absolutely perfect. Lando Norris comes in also for the McLaren team. Lewis Hamilton also decides to come in. So all of the front 5 have all come into the pits. Gasly is going to benefit a little bit from this because he hadn't pitted too long ago. This is going to play massively against Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli having pitted onto the soft compound tyre. The debris down towards turn 2 and 3. Safety car is picking them up. And they decided to drop a safety car for that hazard. There's a lot of drivers coming into the pits now. It's going to really stack the grid all up against one another once again. Gasly does continue. Esteban Ocon and Max Verstappen also gain pretty substantially here. Jack Doohan, I think, came in recently also. It'd be interesting to see where Doohan comes out. I think he might get out in front of Carlos Sainz. Does come out in front of Carlos Sainz. So Jack Doohan up into 9th place. Tsunoda, Behrman, Albon, Antonelli decides to come in again. So Antonelli is now on that 3rd stop. That really didn't play in his favour, though. Antonelli now finds himself behind Albon and Behrman and Tsunoda on track, which is not going to be a fun place for Kimi Antonelli to be. Alonso, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Stroll, and Bortoleto where the drivers are going to be. Bortoleto did come into the pits, but is just coming out and is now slotting into that position once again. Oh, so this safety car has just shuffled it up a little bit, hasn't it? Played perfectly into the hands of Oscar Piastri and sort of George Russell because they'd stayed out. They kind of needed a new set of tyres fairly soon. Interesting that Russell has gone onto the soft compound tyre. So Russell on the softs to Oscar Piastri's mediums. Charles Leclerc on the hard. Norris on the medium. Hamilton on the hard. So it's a real mix of tyres towards the front end of the grid. Gasly gains massively because he... Oh! That's where the debris came from. I didn't realise there was an actual touch between the two. It was the front wing of Yuki Tsunoda clips the rear right tyre of Carlos Sainz. There was actually a touch between the wheels as well. And that debris all over the place. And then there was also a touch between Stroll and Hadjar. So, and Liam Lawson, Stroll and Lawson also a touch towards the back of the pack as well. So it is all building up. But safety car deployed because there was that debris between turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, in and around those first few corners from Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull. So the Grand Prix is going to really heat up now because we're going to start to see very different tyres on all of the front-running cars. 24 laps left to go. You'd imagine that nobody wants to really pit again. We've got that front 5 really nicely packed together. The safety car has already caught Oscar Piastri. We're just sort of waiting for Gasly and Ocon and Verstappen to catch the back of the pack. And George Russell on the radio says exactly that. The 24 laps on a soft is going to be pretty audacious. And in fact, they are a slightly scrubbed set of softs on George Russell's car. So will he be able to go all the way to the end on those soft compound tyres? I'll have to wait and see. I feel like Ferrari has kind of played into their hands a touch. On the hard compound tyre, should be able to go to the end a little bit easier than the rest. It's just a touch early to maybe go on to the softs and mediums as Piastri and Russell have. Of course, it also depends how many laps we have under the safety car, because the safety car is still waiting for the rest of the pack to catch up. You look at Gabriel Bortoleto still all the way at turn 10 as the safety car and the race leaders make their way around the final corner. So we're waiting for that concertina effect to take place a little bit more. Yuki Tsunoda and Carlos Sainz are both under investigation for that incident that caused this debris. So we'll keep an eye on how that investigation goes. And Lando Norris actually thinking that the soft compound tyre is a good choice at this point. George Russell worried about it. Lando Norris not so worried, but on the medium tyre is Lando Norris right now. I think Norris will be a little bit annoyed, maybe because he's on the same tyre as Piastri. Obviously, if he was on a different tyre, could play in his favour. Could play against him, of course, but being on the same tyre does mean that this basically allows Oscar Piastri to still be in the strongest position moving forwards. Although the safety car came out at a very good time for Piastri, that 6-second lead that he had now being cut to almost nothing is not going to be very fun. But to be fair, Piastri has looked very, very comfortable at the front of this Grand Prix. So surely should be able to get to the end and claim a victory for the second time this season. Oscar Piastri showing what he can do. In fact, should we have a little look at the championship as it is right now? Oops. Let's have a look at the championship board. Apologies, it's going to cover over a little bit of everything. Oop. In fact, let me do this. Let's put the championship board over here, because the lap times don't really mean much at this point. So Piastri, as it stands, would take the lead of the Drivers' World Championship for the first time in his Formula One career. Lando Norris would drop to second. And that was what I thought might happen. I wanted to have a look at it. But Oscar Piastri, at the moment, is leading the Drivers' World Championship. Green flag is waved. Safety car is in. We're going to be back underway once again. Let's see what Piastri can do. Down towards the final couple of corners they go, and Piastri launches early, trying to break that toe from George Russell. Peels off to the inside. George Russell, though, on the soft compound tyre, is going to put Piastri under pressure. Lando Norris is also going to be side by side with Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton is going to have a little look as well. Hamilton having a fight. There's fights all the way down the back of the pack. The sparks are flying all the way down to the guys all at the back of the pack. I think Lance Stroll has gone wide at turn 1. Lando Norris is under pressure from the Ferraris. Lewis Hamilton trying to get past Lando Norris at this point. And Norris is pushed wide at turn 5, but manages to keep that position for now. Lando Norris still in 4th place. Piastri defended well from George Russell also. And Piastri still leads. So it's Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton our top 5. Gasly's done well to escape in 6th place. Esteban Ocon up into 7th now. Verstappen managed to keep it all together in 8th, but didn't pit under the safety car. Lewis Hamilton arguing that he got passed off track. Kimi Antonelli, unfortunately, has been overtaken by Alex Albon. It's been a disaster safety car for Kimi Antonelli. Came out of the worst possible opportunity for him. Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, though, having a battle with one another inside of the Williams cars. And Lewis Hamilton arguing on the radio that that Lando Norris should not have been able to keep that position because he overtook whilst off track. Be an interesting one for the stewards to have a little look at. Oscar Piastri sets the fastest lap of the race so far. George Russell then 2nd spot behind him, but still within DRS range. Is the DRS not activated yet, of course. Not been a lap since the safety car. No DRS yet. Wow, Lando Norris has been told on the radio to give back the position. Give back the position is the call for Lando Norris. So Hamilton is going to move ahead of Lando Norris, and Norris is going to have to let him by. Lando Norris drops down to 5th place and is going to be even more frustrated with how this race has played out. A 5-second penalty put him in the worst possible position after the first pit stops, and now back into 5th place with Lando Norris. Gasly still 6th, Ocon 7th. Verstappen under pressure from Doohan once again. Feels weird to have a Verstappen-Doohan battle, but that is what we've had throughout this Bahrain Grand Prix. There was the lock-up from Carlos Sainz, just having a replay of that. Carlos Sainz making up the position on Antonelli. Antonelli had to really get out of it, though. It feels a little bit harsh for Antonelli to have to go that wide. Evasive maneuvers inside of that Mercedes car. But Albon and Sainz got the better of Antonelli, and Antonelli now running in 14th place. Goodness me. 21 laps left to go then. Lando Norris now hankering behind Lewis Hamilton, looking for an opening down towards turn 1. Here they go. DRS is open for Lando Norris. Oh, what's happened to George Russell? What's happened to George Russell? Oh, nothing. I think it's just the timing sheets has gone wrong for some reason. George Russell is still running behind Oscar Piastri, and everything is okay for George Russell at the moment. Esteban Ocon, though, is under pressure from Verstappen. Verstappen trying to make the move and gets the move on Ocon, and Lando Norris is trying to make the move on Lewis Hamilton. Gasly just behind, and Norris does get that move back up ahead. I don't know why George Russell has fallen to the bottom of the timing sheets. I think maybe his car is not getting picked up by the sensors anymore, because it's not just for my timing sheet, but also for the official timing sheets on the Formula One website that George Russell has dropped to 20th spot. But don't you worry, you can see on the track there that George Russell is still running behind Oscar Piastri. I think he has just lost connection. So there's something wrong with his transponder inside of that Mercedes car. So I'll keep you up to date with that, and hopefully they'll be able to get that back up and running again. Charles Leclerc is running effectively 3rd. Norris, Hamilton, Gasly, Verstappen, Ocon, Doohan, and Tsunoda just behind inside of the point scoring places. Ollie Behrman now within one position to go and get inside of the points. And there you go. George Russell put back to where he should be. Just needed a lap to come past the pit wall once again to get him back connected. But he is now officially where he should be. Oh, no. George Russell's dropping down again. George Russell's transponder just doesn't seem to be connecting properly. So, oh my goodness me, it is chaos down there. Yuki Tsunoda tried to make a move on Jack Doohan, but that opened the door to Ollie Behrman, and then Behrman tries to make a move as Albon also is in the mix just behind. Behrman's trying to attack, but also defend. It is all chaos between sort of Jack Doohan down towards Kimi Antonelli, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz. And Antonelli is actually going to take advantage and get back ahead of Alex Albon in all of that chaos. Albon was trying to make a move on Behrman, but in the end actually opened the door to Antonelli. Antonelli now back up into 11th place. Actually 12th. I have to adjust for one place. Antonelli up into 12th. Behrman one position away from the points. Oh, it's really hard, like, looking at it and not realizing that George Russell is just for some reason not connecting to the transponder anymore. So George Russell is, don't worry, in second place, as you can see on the track map. But for some reason on the timing sheet, not connecting to it. Charles Leclerc is running in third. Lando Norris fourth. Hamilton fifth. I think we're just going to have this weird glitch of George Russell going up and down throughout the rest of the session, unfortunately. Gasly is still running really comfortably, actually. Pierre Gasly's doing very well in fifth place. Verstappen up into sixth. No, they're all a place down. Gasly in sixth, Verstappen in seventh. It's messing with my mind. It's absolutely messing with my mind. Charles Leclerc running in third place. Oscar Piastri's done very well, actually, off the restart. I was worried that Piastri, being on the medium tyre, might be under pressure from George Russell on the softs, but he's done very well to escape away from George Russell. And Russell, I think, having to hold on to his tyres that little bit more. I feel like it could come towards George Russell in the end. If George Russell is able to hold on to his tyres really well, then possibly those tyres could kind of come to fruition and the softs could come to life. There's another replay of Antonelli being opportunistic there on Alex Albon and moving up into 12th place. Now looking at the back of Ollie Behrman. Of course, they were teammates last year in Formula 2, but there'll be no love lost between them as they battle their way to some more points on the board for the season, both in their rookie years here in Formula 1. Here we are then. Piastri from Russell comes across the line. We get Russell's actual position when he's on the pit straight. And then as soon as he leaves the pit straight, his transponder loses connection once again. Don't worry, it's not just this one. It is all of the official timings has just lost connection with George Russell, unfortunately. Ollie Behrman under braking, looks at the back of Yuki Tsunoda's car. Can he get around the Red Bull? Not this time around. This is proper racing. This is what we wanted from this season. After the Japanese Grand Prix was very frustrating to watch. Now we've got some proper battles all the way up and down the field. Ollie Behrman and Antonelli. Oh, Lawson and Stroll. Safety car infringement has noted. So, going to be a 5-second time penalty for Liam Lawson coming through. I'd imagine Lance Stroll is going to get similar. So, Lawson down in 15th place at the minute. Getting that penalty. Goodness me. Jack Doohan under a lot of pressure right now from Yuki Tsunoda. There's about 5 cars adjourned behind him. And Hamilton now struggling inside of the Ferrari on the hard compound tyre. We actually saw Max Verstappen really not enjoying driving the car on the hard compound tyre. Maybe the hards just not coming to the cars in the way that they are wanted, because Hamilton was absolutely flying on the medium tyre during the middle stint. Now he is really struggling to find any kind of lap time. He's falling away from Lando Norris in 4th spot. And it does feel like everything's falling apart in Formula One at the minute. The traffic lights wouldn't work for Max Verstappen. The pit stops weren't working properly. We're now getting time board problems. George Russell, is actually still running in 2nd place on the board. Lovely. Kimi Antonelli in 12th place then. Right under the rear wing of Ollie Behrman. Problem is there's a big DRS train from Doohan backwards. Ooh. And Liam Lawson also trying to make up positions. Not really helping himself. Dives up the inside of Nico Hulkenberg's Stake Sauber car and causes a collision, which gets him a time penalty. And Lawson is just having a pretty tough time in that sister Red Bull car. Isaac Hadjar also down in 17th place. The RB hasn't been what we were maybe expecting it to be this weekend, has it? Charles Leclerc actually still a couple of seconds off the back of George Russell. George Russell's starting to gain a touch actually on the lead of Oscar Piastri. Gasly in 6th place still. Verstappen in 7th. And even now on the medium tyre, Verstappen not able to get past the Alpine. Still a good chunk of the race left to go. 15 laps as it stands. And we're on for some very solid point scoring places. We're looking at Jack Doohan getting his first points in Formula One. Yuki Tsunoda, his first points in a Red Bull car. And a few laps still to play out and a few battles still rolling on. Jack Doohan under pressure still from Tsunoda. Behrman is just anxiously waiting for an opportunity, whilst also having to keep an eye on Kimi Antonelli behind. Antonelli knows that he should be higher up on the grid. Antonelli, the real loser in that pit stop debacle with the safety car. So Antonelli all the way down in 12th, where he really shouldn't be. He's had a very solid race as Kimi Antonelli in terms of his out-and-out pace. Here we are then. Lando Norris within DRS range of Charles Leclerc. Isn't able to make the move yet, though, but is getting closer and closer still. And Lando Norris, the medium compound tyre, the quicker tyre on paper compared to the hard compound on Charles Leclerc's car. Wow, Carlos Sainz, a 10-second penalty for a move down at turn 10. So 10-second penalty forcing another driver off the track. It was Kimi Antonelli down towards turn 10. Wow. Carlos Sainz, a 10-second penalty then. And what looked like a possibility of points for Carlos Sainz has now turned into absolutely nothing for sure. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. This is a nice little battle for the final podium place. George Russell not too far ahead either. Lando Norris will be eyeing up 2nd place. Lando Norris knows that his teammate is going to win another Grand Prix this season, as long as he can stay where he has been for the last 44 laps. Lando Norris continuing on. And DRS open for Lando Norris looks at the inside of Charles Leclerc's car, but can't get it this time around. Oh, Kimi Antonelli has just had another track limits violation. That is now 6 track limits violations, which is usually a 5-second penalty. So Kimi Antonelli could be looking at a 5-second penalty for that. It's 6 track limits infringements for them. George Russell having a problem with his DRS at the moment. Not that he's got it anyway at this moment in time. DRS not open on that Mercedes car. But Carlos Sainz going slowly, actually. Getting overtaken by the Racing Bull and Fernando Alonso. Stroll and Bortoletto also passed Carlos Sainz. So Carlos Sainz now all the way at the... Oh, and that's why. A huge hole in the side of the Williams car. And Carlos Sainz is now right at the back of the pack and miles off the back of everybody else. As we are getting towards the final stint of this race, Lando Norris then coming around the final corner. Is he going to have a go at Charles Leclerc this time around? Charles Leclerc positioning his Ferrari on the outside of the track for now. Moves to the inside as he sees Lando Norris. Big lockup from Lando Norris. Goes very, very wide at turn 1. And that's going to cost Lando Norris a considerable chunk of time. He's not going to have DRS again. Surely down towards... Oh, no, he has got DRS once again down towards turn 4. Wasn't expecting that. But Carlos Sainz on the radio. And Carlos Sainz saying on the radio, surely they need to investigate what Yuki Tsunoda did because, well, it's absolutely killed Carlos Sainz's race. So Carlos Sainz all the way at the back and now lapping 5-10 seconds slower than some of the other cars out there. So Carlos Sainz already absolutely trundling around. And actually, I think it's going to come into the pits and possibly retire. So that could be the end of Carlos Sainz's race. Be interesting to see if they serve that 10-second time penalty and just do one more lap so that doesn't roll over to the next race in Saudi Arabia. No, box to retire the car. Albon is the sole Williams then that is still running around. Piastri still leading. George Russell in second. Charles Leclerc in third for now. Lando Norris doing his best to possibly get in front of that. Carlos Sainz on the radio. And James Vowles giving Carlos Sainz some positives from today. He did drive well, actually, Carlos Sainz. Should have been much more from him today. Got a little bit unlucky at various points. Oh, Jack Doohan has also just dropped a couple of positions. Behrman and Antonelli, I think, have been able to get past Jack Doohan's Alpine. Possibly a little mistake from him. And Alex Albon is trying to get himself into the point-scoring places for Williams then. He is running 13th behind Jack Doohan at the moment. Kimi Antonelli currently running 11th. At this point. George Russell 4.5 seconds off the lead of Piastri. Russell in front of Leclerc though. Leclerc in third place. How is Russell second? It's because his transmitter won't actually connect. So Russell is running in second place, but won't come up on the official timings because they can't connect to his Mercedes car when he's not on the pit straight. So it's a little bit of a weird one. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris are running in third and fourth. Lando Norris, DRS open again. Goes down towards turn 1. Are they going to have a look at one another? Charles Leclerc moves to the inside to defend. Lando Norris went too deep a couple of laps ago. Doesn't want to do that again. Otherwise, his tyres are going to start looking more like 50 pence pieces. And Oscar Piastri being told to use the drink, but Piastri's drink not working. And then his engineer just being like, well, there's only 10 laps to go. Mate, you'll be all right. Stick in there. You don't need any drink. And he doesn't. Piastri's absolutely flying, even if he hasn't got any water on board. Russell, Leclerc, and Norris continue on. Lando Norris still frustratingly within the DRS range of Charles Leclerc, but not able to lunge at him in the way that he was a couple of laps ago. Just overcooked it. Hamilton has fallen away pretty substantially on the hard compound tyre. Really annoying, actually, for Lewis Hamilton in all of this. Was really, really strong in that middle stint. Hence why he got up into 5th place. And Jack Doohan with a black and white flag for track limits as well. So he needs to be a little bit careful. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton just hasn't had the pace on the hard compound tyre. And his teammate is also struggling on the hard compound tyre compared to Norris on the medium. Norris down towards turn 1. Leclerc covers him off through turn 2 and turn 3. They go. Norris is going to have the DRS again, though, down towards turn 4. Is he going to peel into the inside? No, opts for the outside. Does Lando Norris. Tries to go all the way around the outside and is pushed off of the racetrack. And was not given the space by Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc was ahead and had the ability to position his car wherever he needed it to be. Leclerc keeps that podium place for now. Just doesn't want to fall for him, does it, Lando Norris? Everything's just been that little bit trickier than it should have been throughout this Grand Prix. Qualified out of position, but then got the positions back thanks to a false start. Had he not been 20 centimeters further back on the grid, wouldn't have had that 5-second penalty. And now with that safety car, hasn't got the advantage that he was hoping for in the same way in this final stint. Lando Norris. It's a tough time for Lando Norris inside of that McLaren car. There's a few things just haven't quite played into his favour. And now Norris on the radio saying he was pushed off by Charles Leclerc. I think the problem is Charles Leclerc was far enough ahead. He kind of had the right to position his car where he needed it to be. Here we go again. Lando Norris lunges to the inside, or at least threatens to. Then around turn 2 and turn 3 they come. DRS is open once again for Lando Norris. Does he go to the inside this time? Try something different? Doesn't decide to make a move this time around. Lando Norris slots in behind Charles Leclerc through that middle part of the lap once more. We have Lewis Hamilton in 5th place still. Pierre Gasly has held on to 6th place. Max Verstappen within a second, though, of Pierre Gasly. And George Russell just being told there's a chance that we lose the dash. So that would mean that the screen on George Russell's steering wheel would go off. So George Russell really struggling with technical problems at the moment. Hence why George Russell not on the map, but is running in 2nd place. So you can imagine him between Piastri and Leclerc on that back straight as Piastri is just coming around to start the next lap of the race. It will be 7 laps left to go for Piastri. Piastri now down towards turn 1 as we enter the final 7 laps of the race. If I could be so bold as to ask you to hit the like button, it really does help out the channel. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are live for every single Grand Prix weekend. And now Lando Norris showing why you need to be subscribed, because he is going to try and make a move on Charles Leclerc. And of course, if you want to join us after the race, we have a members only post-race show. So you can become a member and join us for the post-race show by clicking the link in the description or joining the join button down below. Joining the join, pressing the join button down below. Become a member of the channel is very, very cheap in the grand scheme of things in life and massively supports out the channel. Trying to hit 30 members before the end of the year. Lando Norris has a little look down towards turn 7. Doesn't get around it this time though. 8 and 9 run through. Is he going to try in this DRS zone down towards turn 11? Hasn't made a move down here yet, has Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc has done well to defend. And now doesn't get a go at him. Lando Norris still behind Charles Leclerc. That final podium place still up for grabs. The one driver out of the race, Carlos Sainz, down in 20th. 19 drivers still in the running order as it stands. Piastri from Russell, the top 2. Then Leclerc versus Norris is the battle for the final podium place. Hamilton comfortably in 5th. Gasly is under minimal pressure, but pressure nonetheless from Max Verstappen. Ocon and Ollie Behrman both running inside of the points. Oh, and Russell, for a moment, didn't have any gears to switch into. So Russell might have a proper problem on his hands here. He's been slowly losing various parts of his car's electronics. Lando Norris, though, goes for the lunge. It's turn 4 once again that he goes for it. Tries to get around the outside. Does get around the outside. And finally gets that move to stick. Lando Norris up in front of Charles Leclerc. So Lando Norris is running in 3rd place. Again, the timing sheets for some reason are just not having a go. George Russell, a race infringement for DRS. Maybe that DRS opening up when it shouldn't have been. Lando Norris, though, round the outside at turn 4. Goes very, very deep into turn 4. In the middle of the corner, has to readjust. And just about gets that move done, does Lando Norris. Moves up into 4th place. Is there going to be into 3rd place? Is there going to be a penalty for George Russell for that then? Because if he did open the DRS when he's not technically allowed to, yeah, it's a DRS infringement under investigation for George Russell. Interesting. Here we are then. The next battle to play out on our screens is Gasly versus Verstappen. Gasly running in 6th place, Verstappen in 7th. And Gasly on the radio. Verstappen's had 2 strikes for track limits. Getting frustrated behind. So Gasly just making sure he does everything that he possibly can to keep Max Verstappen behind. Lando Norris finally up into 3rd place on your screens as he should be. It is Piastri, Russell, Norris, our top 3. And the investigation for after the race, George Russell's DRS infringements, that is going to be looked at after the Grand Prix has already finished, which does not help us. And doesn't really help Lando Norris in all of this because he doesn't know how far he needs to finish behind George Russell. I mean, he's going to finish within 5 seconds if Russell does get a 5-second penalty, but doesn't incentivize him to try and go for an overtake in the last 5 laps of the Grand Prix, does it? Lando Norris, has also got a black and white flag for track limits. That's his final warning as well. No more track limits, Lando Norris is told over the radio. So he really doesn't want another 5-second penalty. He's already had one today. He's only 2.4 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Can he get George Russell? Russell is closing, Norris is closing in on Russell by the looks of things. The problem is we don't know what Russell's sector times are because Russell doesn't have any connection to any kind of electronics. So Lando Norris will be within DRS range of Russell. And might be able to even go for a move here. Charles Leclerc down to 4th. Hamilton in 5th. Looks like the Ferraris are going to finish up there. Gasly is still frustrating. Verstappen in 6th and 7th. Ocon is in 8th place. And there is a real malaise of cars behind Esteban Ocon. Tsunoda, Bem and Antonelli Albon all in DRS range of one another. All going for moves almost every other lap. Carlos Sainz out of the race, was in that mix as well, had a bump with Yuki Tsunoda which damaged his side pod and put him out, but Ocon, Tsunoda, Bem and Antonelli Albon all continuing on and all fighting for their lives for those final few points scoring places. And George Russell, he's still under pressure from Lando Norris. Lando Norris getting closer and closer to the back end of that Mercedes car. The problem is it took him a little while to get in front of George Russell. To get in front of Charles Leclerc. Will it take as long to get in front of George Russell? Seen George Russell on the soft compound tyre. Lando Norris going for it. And yeah, Russell's tyres do look like they are absolutely spent, don't they? On the soft compound tyre compared to Lando Norris's medium. Just really struggling out of those first couple of corners is George Russell. Lando Norris isn't able to go at him this time around, though. But he's going to have another couple of laps to go for it. Russell still struggling because, well, Russell hasn't got any connection to any of the electronics in the car. We don't know whether his dash has disappeared from him as well. Had that DRS malfunction also. It's all gone wrong for George Russell inside of that Mercedes car. It's made it very, very comfortable for Oscar Piastri, now leading by over 11 seconds. Lando Norris on the radio. 100% sure we're within it. Okay. So, wow, Leclerc doesn't... Weird. It seems to be something going awry with the DRS inside of these cars. So everything seems to be falling apart in Formula One at the moment here in Bahrain. Various technical problems going on up and down the grid. But here we are then. Russell comes around the final corner. Again, that slightly higher straight line speed on the Mercedes car might just be the saving grace, but Lando Norris, DRS open, has a little look up the inside. Doesn't make a move this time around. I think Norris has decided he prefers turn 4 for his overtaking maneuvers. And here he comes then. Lando Norris versus George Russell. Down towards turn 4 they go. DRS is open on the McLaren car. George Russell breaks the toe just a touch. And Lando Norris doesn't get the move for now. Oscar Piastri, though, has absolutely got this race signed, sealed, and delivered to him for another win. The pinnacle of motorsport. Cars are glitching out. Yeah, it does feel like that. Tsunoda, the driver we should be looking at, he's cooking. Not so much. He's been kind of stuck behind Esteban Ocon for a while now. Here we go then. Norris versus Russell. It's going to be the final lap of the race then. If Norris is going to go for that move, it's now or never for Lando in this. Those soft tyres on Russell's car look absolutely spent. He said on the radio when they put the soft compound tyre on that they were being a little bit ambitious. Possibly the so. Max Verstappen gets a black and white flag for track limits. Liam Lawson with that penalty as well. Some drivers possibly getting some more penalties for track limits, but we enter the final lap of the race for Lando Norris and George Russell. DRS wide open on the McLaren car. It's now or never for Lando. Will he go for a move down towards turn 1? Looks at the outside of George Russell, trying to get the inside of turn 2. Russell closes the door though. And Norris then has to concede the position. Norris still behind George Russell for now. DRS is going to be open down towards turn 4. Is he going to be able to have a little look at the McLaren, the Mercedes car this time around? No. Lando Norris has to slot in just behind George Russell. Russell completely closed that door on Lando Norris through turn 1. There's still an opportunity, though, for Lando Norris to still get that position. Of course, George Russell is still under investigation for that DRS infringement that he had a few laps ago, which is going to be looked at after the race. So we could end up with George Russell getting a penalty anyway. But Lando Norris wants to make sure of it on the road. Here comes Lando Norris once more then. Down towards turn 11 they come. Can he go for it this time? No. It is going to be George Russell in second place, unless Lando Norris can do something pretty spectacular. But there's one driver who won't care about that at all, in that Oscar Piastri is now coming round the final couple of corners to take another victory in Formula One. And the Australian has put himself well and truly in the championship battle. Oscar Piastri is a winner here in Bahrain. A stunning drive from start to finish. A sublime drive, you have to say, from Oscar Piastri. A beautiful qualifying lap. And then a race that he couldn't have done any better in. George Russell comes home in second place. Lando Norris in third. Charles Leclerc will be in fourth place for Ferrari. Actually, a very solid fourth and fifth place from Ferrari, considering where they were at the beginning of the race. Pierre Gasly looks like he's going to have just about kept himself ahead of Verstappen. No, Verstappen is going to pip him. Verstappen gets that sixth place just ahead of Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon in 8th place, Yuki Tsunoda in 9th, and Ollie Behrman in 10th place gets another point on the board for the Haas team. Yuki Tsunoda also getting a couple of points for the first time in that sister Red Bull car. Max Verstappen, though, can only manage a 6th place ahead. Kimi Antonelli finishes just outside of the points in 11th. Alex Albon finishes 12th. Jack Doohan 13th. Nico Hulkenberg 14th. Isaac Hadjar 15th. Fernando Alonso 16th. Liam Lawson 17th. Lance Stroll 18th. Gabriel Bortoleto, the last of the finishers, in 19th place. Carlos Sainz, our one and only driver that dropped out of the Grand Prix after a collision with Yuki Tsunoda, damaged the side pod of his Williams car. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave us a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you are a member, we will now be heading over to the members only post-race show. If you're not a member, become one. Join us for the post-race show. We'll be watching Oscar Piastri lifting the trophy and delving into all of the twos and fros from that race. Feels like it was absolute chaos inside of that Bahrain Grand Prix. The safety car really mixed things up in the middle. And driver of the day goes to Lewis Hamilton. Started 9th, finished 5th. He got 29% of the vote. And what a race it was. I'm going to leave you there, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And we will see you in a week's time for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as well, unless you're a member, in which case I will see you in just a couple of minutes' time once I've swapped over to the second stream.